Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari 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 Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranja Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranja Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranja Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranja Jaya Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shrishantai Gaura. Hare Krishna, everyone. Today we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 15, which is titled King Prithu's Appearance and Coronation. And we're going to read texts 17 and 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So text 17 doesn't have a purport, so I'll read that verse and then afterwards we can all read the second verse, 18 together. Dasha Chandram Ashing Rudra Shatta Chandrang Tatangvika Somo Mritmayan Ashwams Tvashta Rupashrayang Ratam. And the translation is, Lord Shiva presented him with a sword within a sheath marked with 10 moons. And his wife, the goddess Durga, presented him with a shield marked with 100 moons. The moon demigod presented him with horses made of nectar, and the demigod Vishvakarma presented him with a very beautiful chariot. And then text 18. Agnir aja gavang chapang suryo rashmi mayan ishun vuhu paduke yogamayo dyo Pushpavalim Anvaham. The demigod of fire, Agni, presented him with a bow made of the horns of goats and cows. The sun god presented him with arrows as brilliant as sunshine. The predominating deity of Bhurloka presented him with slippers full of mystic power. The demigods from outer space brought him presentations of flowers again and again. So we can read word by word. Agnir Ajagavang Chapang Suryo Rashmi Mayan Ishun O Paduke Yogamayo Dyau Pushpavalim Anvaham. And then line by line. Agnir Ajagavang Chapam Suryo Rashmi Mayan Ishun Bhupaduke Yogamayo Dyo Pushpavalim Anvaham Agnirajagavang Chapang Suryo Rashmi Mayanishun Bhupaduke Yogamayo Dyo Pushpavalim Anvaham. You want to read? Agnirajagavang Chapang Suryo Rashmi Mayanishun Bhupaduke Yogamayo Dyo Pushpavalim Anvaham. Agnirajagavang Chapang Suryo Rashmi Mayanishun Bhupaduke Yogamayo Dyo Pushpavalim Anvaham. Agnirajagavang Chapang Suryo Rashmi Mayanishun Bhupaduke Yogamayo Dyo Pushpavalim Anvaham. Okay, so we'll read the word for word transliteration. Agnihi, the demigod of fire. Ajagavang, made of the horns of goats and cows. Chapam, a bow. Surya, the sun. Rashmi Mayan, brilliant as sunshine. Ishun, arrows. Bhumi, the predominating goddess of the earth. Paduke, two slippers. Yogamayo, full of mystic power. Dyo, the demigods in outer space. Pushpa, of flowers. Avalim, presentation. Anu Aham, day after day. Then you can all repeat the translation. The demigod of fire, Agni, presented him with a bow made of the horns of goats and cows. The sun god presented him with arrows as brilliant as sunshine. The predominating deity of Bhurloka presented him with slippers full of mystic power. The demigods from outer space brought him presentations of flowers again and again. So this translation and purport is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. This verse describes that the king's slippers were invested with mystic powers. Paduke Yogamayo. Thus, as soon as the king placed his feet in the slippers, they would immediately carry him wherever he desired. Mystic yogis can transfer themselves from one place to another whenever they desire. A similar power was invested in the slippers of King Prithu. So now we know where they got it from in the movies and the videos. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunivari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanshakapatarubhyascha, Kripasindubhyeva cha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So thank you all for this opportunity to try and serve by our discussions today on these verses. And I pray for all your blessings to do justice to this class so that we can have a better understanding of the Lord's activities and His teachings. So this verse is appearing in the context of Pritha Maharaj's appearance. His father, Vena, was cruel and insubordinate to the Supreme Lord and the demigods, so he has been killed, and Pritha Maharaj has appeared. And Pritha Maharaj is not just any king, he's an empowered incarnation of God, called a Shakti Avesh Avatar. Shakti is the power of God that has been invested in him. This happens from time to time, that the Lord invests His powers into a particularly exalted soul, so that some mission of the Lord can be accomplished. And since the Lord's powers are the same as Him, when the power incarnates, then He incarnates. Right? So we call it an incarnation of the Lord, and the Shakti Avesh avatars fall into one of the 6 main categories of incarnations, even though they are they're souls, jiva souls like you and I. They're not in the category of God exactly. So we may wonder how it is that the Lord can actually give off His power and actually be in His power as well. So we could take an analogy. Right? I have some creative ability. I can paint something or draw something or create a display. So about that ability, you could say, she is creative, and that way the power is mine. You're speaking of it as me. But if you say she has a creative ability, now you're speaking of it as something that belongs to me. Yet at the same time, it's mine. So it's almost as if it can exist outside of me in whatever I create, right, and be within me to use as I need to. But of course, that's all we can do. We can create something, and it can be a representation of us, but we can't actually put our powers into something and allow those powers to act on their own, to be creative aside of me. Right? That would be nice if we could do that, just put the power into the tools and then they kind of do everything for us. So Krishna can do that. He can put the power into a personality, and he can personify his powers. Right? And we all know that the most glorious personification of the Lord's powers is Srimati Radharani. She personifies his power of Hladini, his power of bliss, of happiness. Right? And therefore she has the ability to make him happy and everyone else as well. But yet at the same time, Krishna doesn't lose any of his power of bliss. He is still bliss personified. Just because Srimati Radharani is personifying his power doesn't make him any less blissful. It doesn't mean that he's not blissful anymore because his power is in someone else, right? He still has unlimited power and he still personifies that power. Right? So it's a little esoteric, but this is what we expect from God. We expect that he has these kind of abilities. So Krishna can personify his powers and he can also bestow his powers. And of course, his various expansions and incarnations can also display his powers as needed. So the difference between an expansion and an incarnation is that an expansion of Krishna remains in Vaikuntha and the incarnation of the Lord descends to the material world. The Sanskrit word for those incarnations that descends is an avatar, means one who descends. So yes, the word also came from Sanskrit, not from the movies. So when other beings possess the Lord's powers, beings other than those in the category of him, his category is Vishnu Tattva, then these powers are to be used for his services or his purposes, right? Specifically for a mission that he has. Because like Srila Prabhupada explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord always has a mission when he incarnates, always. And this is why one of the categories that we can distinguish fake incarnations. They have no real mission to accomplish. So these divisions of Shakti Avesh avatars, there's two broadly, and then a subdivision Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains these to Sanatana Goswami. So the two divisions of the Shakti Avesh avatars are direct avatars called Mukhya avatars. And the direct avatars are actually Vishnu Tattva. They're incarnations of Krishna that display a specific power. And in that class, divine persons like Ananta Shesh, who has a specific power to hold all the universes on his head, Bhudharana, that Shesha. Ananta manifests everything that the Lord needs. Right? Ananta and Shesha are actually two incarnations. So there's a special ability, right? We can imagine this because it's not just like even for a time, like a lot of the Lord's incarnations, it's perpetual, right? Ananta Shesha and Lord Ananta is like, he's manifesting everything everywhere that the Lord needs in the spiritual world and in the universe perpetually. Can you imagine? Literally being everywhere at once. And Lord Shesha is holding up all the universes from the beginning of time. Right? It's quite extraordinary abilities, literally on his head. And then in the other category, there are Shakti Vesh avatars who are not incarnations. So souls like us, but who are obviously much more exalted and pure souls, that have been given the Lord's powers, and they are indirect Avesh. We had the direct Avesh, and now we have the indirect Avesh. And the Sanskrit term is Gauna, Mukhya and Gauna. So there's a subdivision in these indirect incarnations. Subdivision in the souls that get powers from the Lord. If they're getting those powers for a specific mission, then they are actual, like the Shakti Avesh proper that we refer to in scripture. And if they are exhibiting some power, but it's actually, part of their everyday activities, we could say for their own purposes, then they're called vibhutis. So the point here with Prita Maharaj is that a pure soul or an exalted soul can be a vessel for the Lord's power. And with that power, this great soul can carry out an activity or a mission for the Lord that wouldn't be possible for any ordinary person. And this is the Shakti Avesh avatar in particular versus the Vibhutis. So in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is describing some of the more significant personalities and beings that embody his powers. Some are full incarnations of his in that list, like Lord Ram, Lord Vishnu. And others are Shakti Avesh avatars, empowered souls on a mission, like Narada Muni. He has the power of Bhakti, Bhakti Shakti. And the rest, actually most, are Vibhutis. Ordinary souls that display extraordinary power for ordinary purposes, right? You can put it that way. And these include creatures like the shark, like the lion, like the Himalaya mountains, right? And they are very formidable creatures, right? The shark is extremely powerful as an aquatic as compared to all other aquatics. The lion is an extremely powerful land animal. The Himalayas are a colossal mountain range. And all those powers are coming from the Lord. But we can see it's not the same as Maharaj Prithu, right? The lion and the shark and the Himalaya mountains are not carrying out some specific task for the Lord. These powers are just there perpetually for their own purposes. So we could see the difference because also the power of Maharaj Prithu was quite extraordinary in that time. It's not something that we can replicate. He was literally able to chase the earth and make her yield his bounty. That's not something that we can do. Shri Shri Radharanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Giraj Govardhan Hari ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So more than just being a great king, like you could get a great aquatic, the shark, right? He had a really extraordinary power, right? That he could make the earth yield her bounty. Now someone could pose the question, but the Lord also takes the form of a fish, right? A shark is one of the fish, right? So He takes the form of a fish, he takes the form of a lion, maybe half man, half lion, but he can take these forms as well. So what's the difference? The difference is that when the Lord takes on these forms, they are full incarnations, right? These animal-like forms, because the Lord is never like an ordinary animal. And he does extraordinary things as a fish, right? The sharks kind of like, they grow, they use their powers to eat, to have families, to bite some people, and then they die. It's a great power, but there's not much more that they do. But when the Lord appears as a fish, he grows to gargantuan proportions, right? In a very short time. He talks to King Satyavrata. He appears to guide the king on the boat that he told the king to construct, and he saves all the personalities from the waters of devastation, which are nothing like the ocean as we know it. Okay, so that's not ordinary on any level. And on top of that, he's enlightening the king with transcendental knowledge while they're on the waters of devastation. So it's no ordinary fish. So we can see then that there's a lot of nuances in the descriptions of incarnations, and we should understand them so we don't have people mislead us, right? People who want to claim incarnations from all kinds of other sources and circumstances, right? So, as much as in the list of vibhutis, or among the list of vibhutis in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there are full incarnations like Lord Ram, Lord Vishnu. It's not the same as the others in that list, right? The Lord is still in his own class, Vishnu Tattva. This helps us to not start looking at that chapter and thinking, okay, the shark is God, and the lion is God, and the mountain is God, and you are God, and I am God. You see where this is going, right? This is a bit of a problem. This is the misinterpretation that can happen. So why did Krishna give Arjuna this list in this way, right? Arjuna had asked Krishna, how shall I remember you? How shall I think of you? Right? Katang vidyang ahang yogims twang sada parichintayan keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. Because that's our goal in spiritual life. Our ultimate goal is that complete meditation or remembrance of Krishna. And these middle 6 chapters are where Krishna is explaining about himself and explaining about service to him. So Arjuna, convinced of all of this now, says, I want to remember you, I want to know you, I want to perfect this process of bhakti that you've just told me about. So how can I do that? So then we may think, well, if Krishna asked such a question, surely a better answer would be to talk more about the incarnations of himself, right? To talk more about himself, talk about his pastimes. Why is he choosing to list all of these personalities and things, rather? So Krishna is basically doing so to address one problem that we all have in life, but particularly in spiritual life as well, and that is doubt. Doubt. And he says in the 4th chapter that Nayam lokasina paro nasukam samshayatmanaha. If we remain doubtful, we'll have happiness neither now nor in the next life. Right? We'll always be unhappy. So how is Krishna helping us with doubt through this list of vibhutis? And so because of our measure of outright disbelief, right? People out there just don't believe in him. Or even sometimes we may all have a little disbelief, right? We might sometimes think, do you really do that? Yes. You don't have to feel guilty about it. This is where we're coming from, right? This is material conditioning. So we may wonder about those pastimes, about those powers, about those displays. But we can't argue with the shark's power, can we? Right? No one wanted to go in the water after watching Jaws. Right? Nobody takes a walk in the safari park without a car around them if they know that lions are there. Right? What to speak of doing it in the jungle. Okay? Everybody knows about the power of these things. You've heard about it, you haven't experienced it. There's proof for your senses. Anyone can be awed by seeing the Himalaya mountains. Everyone has experienced how beautiful spring is. Right? We all have experience of seeing majestic things in some way or the other. Right? If it's an ancient banyan tree, they're pretty impressive. Or if you've had the fortune of experiencing the sanctity of the Ganges River, which remains purifying no matter what flows in it. I remember we were in Mayapur and we had come to one of the places of the Lord's pastimes, and it was right at the bank of the Ganges, absolutely beautiful spot. And we get this strange smell. So just coming into our view was this massive carcass of a buffalo that had found a very fortunate end, but for us was just repulsive. It was shocking. So we waited for it to pass while we were gagging. And then, and this is a revelation for someone who has OCD, we just went down and sipped the water. This is power of the holy Dham, I guess. I'm not going to do that here, but you get what I mean. The Ganges is just, you just can't help, no matter what your hang-ups are, to be moved by that purity. Right? And then the excitement of winding down the year around November, December, because Krishna is represented by November, December. Right? Everyone's experienced that. And the wealth that is wisdom, right? Wisdom that people have chased over millennia. So the point is, there are objective things that we've all felt. And so that means that we've all felt Krishna's power. Even if we're new to the spiritual journey, even if we're not on the spiritual journey, we can believe. We can believe because we've had experience of it. And that's very important, even though he says it's just a spark. Tattar eva vagachatvam mama tejomsa sambhavam. It's just a spark. But it's what we need for that initial faith, that very important first steps in spiritual life. Okay? We have to believe in his greatness to be awed to come and serve him, to come and see him, to associate with those who are awed by him also, and to serve them as well. So this is the beginning of the bhakti process, basically, for everybody. The greatness of God, knowing the greatness of God. So even if we have that motivation, even if we have any motivation, he's okay with that, right? As long as we turn to him, as long as we come to him. Right? So that's why he says as well in the 4th chapter, Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritina arjuna artha jigyasur artharthi jnani cha bharatarshapa. Those 4 people, artha, the distressed, jigyasur, the inquisitive, artharthi, the one in need of wealth, and jnani, the wise. And we may be in any of these categories, some of straddling a few of the categories, none of them, but as long as we're turning to him, he considers us pious, and he considers us the best of among the ordinary population. So eventually, through rendering service to him, we will not need any motivation. The irony is, we will stop seeing him as great. That's the culmination of bhakti. We start off believing in his greatness, and we end off, when our eyes are tinged with the salve of pure love, seeing him as an ordinary boy, steals butter, or as somebody we could have as a friend, or somebody we could chastise as a son. Right? And that is the most exalted level that we can achieve. So it sounds very interesting. You start off believing God is great, and you end up not really being conscious of it. But that's the wonder of bhakti. That's what it allows us to do. So it's important that we know about this greatness of God, that we don't have the problem that people have. That, well, there was one pastime where he was just sitting and having lunch with his friends, and now he's lifting a hill with the little finger of his left hand. So that disbelief is there because of the problem of not knowing his greatness. And so they try to make these glorious pastimes seem figurative. Right? It stands for something, it didn't really happen. Right? A conflation of the mind. Somebody just got excited and wrote this, this story down to make kids go to sleep. It's a problem. Right? So you need a level of maturity and a little bit of faith in order to approach the Lord's pastimes. Right? And all of you have it. That's why you're here. You may not think it's extraordinary, but it is. Right? If you consider how many people are out there not really believing in this. Okay? But for those people, the Lord is so kind that even if they don't see Him in this exceptionally beautiful boy, but they see it in the beauty of nature, they see it in that mountain range, or they see it in that shark swimming in the ocean, or the lion, all the sights that excite people. If they want to see God there, it's okay. It's not wrong as well. He's so merciful and He's so kind, He's allowing them to do that. Right? His powers are there, and in some way or the other, they're appreciating Him. Right? Some kind of benefit. So that's actually, it's good for them. But it's a lot more advanced if you get to know Him personally, rather than just through His powers, which are fairly impersonal. We have an example. The president has a relationship with all of us, believe it or not. I was quite amused to see in the passport, the president speaks for us. He asks that the bearer of this passport be allowed to enter the country. Right? So we all have a relationship with him. But that can't compare to the relationship that his family has with him. That his child, or his spouse, or his parents, or his close friends have. Right? There's a very big difference. That's a very significant, deep, meaningful relationship that leads to a lot of significant, deep, and meaningful interactions. So therefore, through the power of bhakti, we are getting that opportunity. We're getting that opportunity of going beyond just seeing Him in nature or in the environment or in these vibhutis. We are getting to know Him personally, to develop that relationship so we can actually experience it for eternity. Right? That is extraordinary. It's very extraordinary. So this again is the power of bhakti. Bhakti is the highest expression of Krishna's personal power, Ladini Shakti. Right? So this Bhakti Shakti has the ability to actually bring the Lord under His under someone who possesses it, under their control. That's how extraordinary it is. Right? It's not in some weird way like mind control and stuff like that. Right? It's not like that. But it's literally through the power of unconditional love. That's what bhakti allows us to do. Because bhakti, in its unselfish, pure nature, attracts the Lord and brings Him under one's control, literally, attracts Him and pleases Him. Right? It's actually the highest power, right? The highest power that is. And like we said a little earlier, Narada Muni possesses that Shakti. And he travels around the whole of creation, practically. He's got license to go anywhere without that passport. And he can bestow that bhakti on anybody. So it's got some significance to this history of ours as well, because Dhruva Maharaj was one such disciple of Narada Muni that got this bhakti shakti from him. Okay? Dhruva Maharaj was an ancestor of Maharaj Prithu. We consider the circumstances. Dhruva Maharaj was 5 years old. Right? Imagine any 5-year-old, 5 years old, went to the forest. Forget the day. He was alone there at night. Right? We can't even stay in our gardens alone at night, right? Without getting freaked out by every sound. It happened to us last night, and my mother was laughing at me. But I'm like, this is just a natural response. Okay? You get freaked out. Imagine in the jungle, 5-year-old boy. And then on top of that, he gets instructed by a guru to do things that ordinary 5-year-olds don't actually do at home, what to speak of in the jungle, right? Actual literal worship of the Lord, not play, not mud toys and stuff like that. This was real worship of the Supreme Lord, and utter and complete focus on chanting His names, and no cooked food, which is probably the worst out of all. Right? No cooked food. After a while, not even fruits, not even water, just air. And through such perfect focus, right, chanting that was utterly offenseless because there was no other focus besides God, he captured the Lord in his heart. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam says. Right? Captured the Lord in his heart. And that gave him the ability to bring the Lord to him. That's what Bhakti Shakti means. That's what it means by bringing the Lord under your control. And he did this all in a record time of 6 months. That's impressive. Start to finish, 6 months, right? Just from being an angry 5-year-old boy to being a pure devotee that brought God to him. He didn't go to God, God came to him. And so that's what a Shakti Avesh avatar can do. Right? They possess the power and they can grant that power. So with that power, Narada Muni has made disciples of some extraordinary personalities. Snakes and highwaymen and these 5-year-old boys, right? All kinds of other personalities. So it just shows, right, the power in the right hands. So we also saw those modern day miracles with Srila Prabhupada, what he enabled persons who had no background in spiritual life at all to be able to do, also in a very short time. So this also helps us understand why the Shaktis of the Lord are actually bestowed upon personalities rather than the Lord just doing it himself. Right? Because you need the blessings and the mercy of a devotee in order to get bhakti. So in one way you could say that it's actually a little more effective when the Shakti is with the devotee than with God to make others devotees. Right? You get the mercy of the devotee and you get the Shakti from God. It's really good 2-for-1 deal. And therefore this mercy can work so quickly, right? Also the fact that Krishna just doesn't give himself to everybody so easily, right? He's God, there's conditions, there has to be conditions. Right? We would make those conditions as well. But the devotee doesn't care about those conditions, like just take, right? Just take. So there's also reasons, of course, why the Lord appears himself and his associates accompany him, but they don't carry out the mission for him, right? Like the Yuga Dharma. The great personalities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, they were already present on this earth, but they didn't, like Lord Nityananda, actually almost all the Lord's associates, primary associates, appeared before him. Right? Lord Nityananda was already on the planet, Advaita Acharya was already on the planet, Srivas Thakur was already on the planet. But they waited for him because he must give the Yuga Dharma. Right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead grants the Yuga Dharma for this age. So there's always a method to everything that the Lord does. So we must also stress on another point, when we said earlier on that the Lord is his powers, we must also understand that they're not coming from some other source, right? Because that's another misconception that people have, right? That there's some unseen or some force field or something that's behind Krishna that gives him these abilities. You know, the same way they think that we could get those abilities. That's also a big misconception. And to clear that up, Krishna says in many places in scripture, but also of course in many places in Bhagavad Gita, and particularly in the 7th chapter, that there's nothing beyond him. Nothing and no one beyond him. Matta parataram nanyat kinshid asti dhananjaya. Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre mani gana iva. Okay? O conqueror, while there is no truth superior to me, everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. For emphasis, we have 2 pronouns here, me. Mattaha, beyond me, and mayi, in me. So we can't get more personal than that. Right? And it's a bit strange when people interpret these verses to mean something else. How can you find any more meaning in me? Right? Right? We accept that Bhagavad Gita is such a powerful literature. How would Krishna be right with everything else and make a mistake here? We take his words and we interpret it or we use it to make ourselves famous, but then, okay, this verse, this one, Krishna he didn't mean this. Right? So we see the obvious problem with this. The problem is that people they can't accept the implications of understanding Krishna's glories. Like we said, those implications mean that we'll want to serve him by knowing about his greatness. And he says also in the 7th verse of chapter 10, Etang vibhutim yogam cha mama yoveti tatpataha so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayaha. If someone is factually convinced of Krishna's opulence and his mystic power, they engage in unalloyed devotional service. That is the reason we must be convinced of his power, and that's the reason why people don't want to be convinced of his power either. And the false ego is so strong that they cannot submit to devotional service. They cannot accept this extraordinary Shakti of Bhakti. Then they have to make it seem that Krishna is not really as great as he says he is. So in this verse, the Devatas, who are now convinced of Krishna's power in this great personality, King Prithu, they're coming to make offerings because of that. They haven't accepted him as an incarnation based on somebody's idea, based on some trick that he pulled. They're accepting him as an incarnation because these learned brahmanas, who are extremely powerful brahmanas, if they could just utter hum and kill Vena, these accomplished persons, they are the brahmanas have offered their scriptural opinion, and then this has been verified by Lord Brahma. You can't get a better authority than that. Right? Brahma has come, he's seen for himself the markings on the palm. They are the bodily markings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's convinced, and he, of course, as the spiritual leader of the demigods, they've been convinced also. So this is how we accept an incarnation, right? On the basis of scripture, on the basis of great personalities, realized souls who can see the truth, and not on the whims of people in general. So we don't take this as a precedent that Maharaj Prithu was a jiva and he was taken as God and worshipped as such. That's not it, right? That's a very superficial and narrow way of looking at it. Okay. So he came with a mission as well, just like an authorized incarnation of the Lord. And so in these few verses, he's been given many wonderful things to carry out that mission. Right? And in these two verses in particular, he's given articles that are specific to a Kshatriya, to a great king. So then we can ask, well, if he came with so many powers, why is he not coming with his own weapons and his own implements? Why do these have to be given to him by the Devatas? So the truth is that he does have all of these, and they were bestowed upon the Devatas in the first place to give to him, right? Just like every ability we have is bestowed, just like we were saying earlier on. Whether we're vibhutis or whether we're ordinary persons, every ability does come from him. But this is also their way of rendering service to him. Bhakti again. This is their opportunity to serve him, not just now, but with all these things, they'll be perpetually serving him as he uses them, right? So this is of great benefit to them. So he's actually accepting it more for his benefit than, more for their benefit than for his benefit. Right? Because the Lord, like we read in the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes with his servitors and his weapons. He comes with everything. Right? He's a package deal. He doesn't need anything from anyone else. Right? But this is the way of the Devatas serving him. And they're, of course, they're very pleased about his appearance as well. It matters to them what happens to this earth planet. Right? Because when the people are pious and engaged in rituals for their perpetuation, they benefit from that. Right? So the fact that in Kali Yuga almost no one is carrying these out properly, we can understand that it's probably Kali Yuga up there as well. Right? It's not, the glorious days of what Krishna describes in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where in the beginning of creation, the Lord of creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Vishnu and blessed them, saying, "Be thou happy by this yagya and sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." Everybody benefited. The demigods actually live off those offerings. They, in return, gave us everything that we needed. And so there was no scarcity of anything. Right? So there's two factors working against us in this day and age. One is that we're not engaging in these sacrifices if we are on that level of sacrifice. And we don't have rulers like Maharaj Prithu that can get the bounty of the earth. We don't have any experience of the fact that when you have a perfect ruler, everything is provided by the earth with no effort. We have the experience of the opposite. Right? The scarcity and the natural disasters, all of that is actually coming from the leaders. Right? But the converse is also true. So, of course, we know in this day and age that the performance of sacrifices like it was done then is not possible either. Right? People are just not pure, they're not capable. We don't even have that knowledge anymore. Right? We've lost most of the Vedic teachings. So in this day and age, the yagya, the sacrifice, is the sacrifice of our life air, of our focus and our concentration on the Supreme Lord in the chanting of His holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this yagya, called the Sankirtan yagya, is the one that bestows everything, literally everything. Right? But it also helps us to achieve that ultimate goal, right? Where we get beyond the greatness of God and we see Him as our beloved, the object of our affection. Yeah. So thank you all so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah. Any questions or comments, anything to correct?
Hare Krishna. So in the Brahma Samhita, there's a nice verse that actually talks about Krishna and his incarnations and how he does not diminish any of that power that he bestows upon his incarnation. And the analogy is given of a candle. A candle, you light one candle from another candle, on the original candle, and many candles are lit, but the original candle still remains as it is. So I was thinking about that analogy as you were giving class, and also about Bhakti Shakti, the potency of Bhakti is very rare, and it's not bestowed upon just anyone. It's given to those individuals that have lolium for it, who have greed for it. So, yes, and in the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says that out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection. And even those endeavoring for perfection, hardly anyone can attain it. So, yeah. So, but in this process of Bhakti Yoga, we are guaranteed the end result by the previous acharyas and most specifically Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Are there any more questions, comments? Okay, thank you all so much, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.